Hello, this is Scotty McCoy. I am the author of the Ultimate Friday the 13th Trivia Book, and I am writing another book titled The Ultimate Slasher Movie Encyclopedia, and I am interviewing the cast and crew of the Friday the 13th franchise, and I currently have on the phone with me David Katims, who played Chuck in Friday the 13th Part 3. Hi, David. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Scotty. How are you?
I'm doing great. I had an interview earlier today. This is a double duty I pulled today, so a little busy. So the first question I have is not related to Friday the 13th. It's just to describe how did you get your start in acting?
Well, I actually was getting my degree in psychology from UCLA, and I had finished my psych requirements, so I decided to take an acting class because I thought it would be easy. And the first time I had to do a scene in the class, I was petrified scared. And some people would run away from that experience. I was challenged by it, so I gave myself, once I graduated, I gave myself 6 months to get a paying gig in acting if I were going to really pursue it. And within about 3 or 4 months, I got cast in a recurring role on General Hospital as a mental patient. And that's how I got my start.
That's awesome. So what was your audition like for Friday the 13th Part 3?
Well, it was multiple, I guess I would say. They had decided fairly quickly that they liked me, but they weren't sure who they wanted to cast for my girlfriend. So without telling me I was officially cast, they kept asking me to call. They kept calling me back. So I think I went on as many as 6 auditions.
Wow.
Before they officially told me I was cast. However, they did tell me after the third audition to start growing my beard and letting my hair grow. So I thought that was probably a good sign, which it was.
Definitely. So, speaking of your on-screen girlfriend, the majority of your scenes were with Rachel Howard, who played Chili. So how was she on set? How was it like working with her? How was she as a person?
Well, she's a very nice person. This was her first and maybe her only role as an actor. So she was not experienced, I guess is the way to say it. So, she marches to her own beat. So but everybody got along on the set. That was not an issue. But I don't know that. I would say that she. I want to be positive. I just think she was new to the whole thing and didn't know necessarily what ideas would work as well as other ideas. So.
Right, that makes sense. So, what was it like working with Richard Brooker, who played Jason Voorhees?
Well, Richard Brooker was a larger than life guy, and if you could, I'm sure older than you, but he was British, and he kind of reminded one of Peter O'Toole. Not necessarily in that he was as good an actor, because we'll never know. Anybody who plays Jason are really just stunt people. They don't talk. They just wear a mask.
Right.
They're always desired at the convention, beyond measure. But really, I always give Richard a hard time at the convention, saying, "Hey, he's not an actor. He's just
The stuntman.
he's a stunt guy." But that said, he was definitely, he's loud, he drinks, and he is definitely funny. So yeah, Richard was great fun to have on the set.
That's great. So we know your character Chuck was a stoner. So what were the drugs that Chuck used on set made from, like in reality?
Well, the first time I had to smoke a joint, they actually had rolled it out of tobacco.
Okay.
And I'm not a cigarette smoker, so I coughed and said, I can't do this. I can't inhale. But I did my own research and had gone to a health food store, and they sold, if you could imagine, health food cigarettes that you could, I could inhale without gagging, but really were mild to inhale.
Okay.
So that's what we smoked. But there was also a scene where we ate caught because we thought we were being chased by the cops.
Yeah.
And that was actually barley, which
Nice.
also was disgusting
Oh.
tasting, but it was.
The funny thing is, like, every time I watch Friday the 13th Part 3, which I love, it's actually one of my favorite films. It's definitely in my top 3 to begin with. Your character always cracks me up because I always laugh at the one scene when Rachel Howard's character comes behind you and scares you after you get out of the porta potty, and you thought you saw Shelly ducking in the barn, and after you got scared, you're like, I don't know who's gonna, between you and Shelly, I don't know who's gonna give me the heart attack.
Yeah, that in horror films, they're often what they call red herrings, which make you afraid even though there's nothing happening in that scene.
Right.
And that's what that scene was built as, for sure.
Yeah.
When we were in the rehearsal, not in the rehearsal, the audition period, there were plans to make this much more a comedic character, which I wish they had actually gone with.
Right.
But they had also meant to make it a male-female ripoff of Cheech and Chong. And so some of the actresses that I had read with were absolutely Hispanic and did a Hispanic accent, and I did a very obvious stoner character, a direct ripoff of Tommy Chong. But when we got to day one of the set, Richard Miner, the director, said, "Nah, we're gonna go away from that. So just use your regular voice."
Right.
So okay, but it's too bad because I thought that there could be a lot of play with a character that was so stoned that he was avoiding death just because he was in a stupor. So maybe having him trip over a log and a flying axe goes by, missing him because he was just stoned rather than that he was trying to avoid anything.
So how was your death scene prepped and filmed?
How was it? What?
How was it prepped and filmed? Like, how do they do the death scene? How do they create that?
Well, anytime someone gets punched or assaulted in film, it is the receiver of that pain that sells the punch. Right. So in this scene, I'm thrown into an electrical outlet, and they didn't have Richard Brooker actually throw me into an electrical outlet. There was kind of a springboard, and when he goes at me, I sprung off that board into the electrical, the fuse box, where they had taped the sides so that I wouldn't cut my hand on anything.
Okay.
But everything was, they used a stunt coordinator, everything was done very methodically. The only thing that was funny about that particular scene is they said, okay, so you're going to put your hand on this fuse box and sparks are going to fly out. But you'll be fine, you'll be safe. Just look the other way, away from the sparks, and you'll be fine. And so I said, okay, I trusted them. And then just as we were about to roll, the director of photography said, okay, everybody 20 feet away from the camera. And I go, hold on a second. I'm supposed to be safe, but everybody else has to be 20 feet away. That's still so safe.
Oh, God. So what were the sparks actually made from?
What were the what?
The sparks actually made from?
Better people than me would know. I really don't know. I just know that, like I say, that they were, I really don't know. It just kind of whatever electronic device they had to create sparks.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what they were made of.
Oh, okay. So we know that Steve Miner was a young director at the time. His first feature film he directed was Friday the 13th Part 2, and then he was brought back for Friday the 13th Part 3. So how was he as a director?
So here's what, and I've told this to many people who've interviewed me, so it won't be anything new. But,
okay.
Steve went on to become a pretty good director. He went on to direct several episodes of a series called The Wonder Years, and I thought that was really quite a good body of work that he did. But at the time he directed our film, he at least I related him. He was very easy to work with, but I don't know that he did as much homework as he might have. In that, I'm an actor, and I was also used to doing the improv and anything. But if I did something one way and he wanted to see something different, rather than have an idea of what he wanted to see and giving me some direction, he would just say, "Okay, do it again. Just do it different." And I'm thinking, yeah, but I can give you column A, column B, column C. Just which way do you want me to go? And he just didn't really have an idea. He just wanted to see things, and then he'd decide if he liked it or not.
Right. Makes sense. So,
for someone like me, it wasn't a problem. I was willing to work that way, but I don't know if a first-time actor like Rachel, I don't know. I never talked to her about it, but if that was more difficult for her.
Do you know if Rachel is easy to get a hold of? Because I would even like to interview her. I don't know. I couldn't find her on Facebook.
Oh, well, here's what I'll tell you. No, absolutely she's not easy to get a hold of. And you would not be the first person to not succeed. She has gone into a profession where she did not want to continue being that part of her life being exposed. I think she became a doctor, and I thought she thought that it was not necessarily the way she wanted her patients to know her.
Well, that makes sense. That does make sense too. I mean, I definitely understand that. And I respect her decision. I'm not going to reach out to her out of respect for her.
Yeah, but personally, I have no idea how to get a hold of her. So
yeah. That makes sense. So, what was the best part about filming Friday the 13th Part 3, and what was the worst part?
What was the best thing about it?
Yeah, what was the best part about filming, and what was the worst?
I mean, there were a lot of best things. That was my first, and really has been my largest role I ever did. So it was very educational for me to work on a film where I got to be in a lot of scenes, and so that was one thing that's great about it. Actually, I got along with most every member of the cast, so that was easy to. One of the great things about it as well. I guess the longevity of the interest in this film has been one of the great things. The people and the relationships, that has been, I guess, the best part of it. And really, to this day, a film that's over 32 years old, I still get fan mail pretty regularly, so it's pretty shocking. I never would have anticipated that interest. Certainly none of us did at the time, anyway.
Right.
One of the worst things, that's a tougher question because I really have nothing bad. I mean, I can tell you a thing that happened, but it was bad, but it wasn't bad for me personally. It just was something that happened on one of the shoot dates. They used a thing called a Luma crane, which is a long tube on top of a crane, and it collapses. And at the end of the tube is a camera. So the camera operator is not sitting behind the camera. He's actually watching it on a video screen in a trailer. And so one day, that piece of equipment tipped over. And it was a very expensive piece of equipment. So there was a lot of tension on the set that day.
Wow.
The producer and everybody involved, they were pretty pissed off. And, I'm sure my memory is they were trying to lay blame on one person or another. But it really didn't last. That tension did not continue on to the next day or anything like that. So I don't have anything terrible to say in terms of something bad.
I usually get that from a lot of the people I interview. A lot of them say that there's really nothing really that bad. Like it's all like everybody's down to earth. Everybody's very nice. Like there was really nothing that they could even think of as well.
Well, and also grateful. Actors don't get to work every day.
That is true.
I think I worked on that film for 7 weeks and fantastic.
That's true. So, can you please describe what the atmosphere was like on the set?
Well, one of the things that happened that people find kind of amusing is that the crew loved to gamble. So every day at lunch, they gambled and played card games. And I don't know if you know this game. There's a game called AC Doocy, which is a kind of a match the pot kind of a game.
Okay.
And it's usually very easy going, no big deal. But one day, people kept losing and losing, and that pot got from typically it might be $20 to $40 in the pot. It got up to $700 in the pot, and the producer Frank Mancuso Jr. lost $400 because he tried to take a whole bunch of money out of the pot, and he lost. And so during that particular hand, the assistant director came up to me and said, "Okay, it's time to get back to the set." And I said, "No, I don't think so. I have a chance to rent some money out of this fund." And he goes, "No, you got to get back there." I said, "Look, we got the producer in this hand, we got the director, we got the director of photography. Until those guys are back on the set, nobody's shooting anything. So no, I'm not going home there." And so we finally, I actually did win $200 out of that pot. But as we're walking back to the set, the producer, Frank Mancuso, said, "My God, I lost $400 in that pot." And the assistant director said, "Yeah, you also lost nearly 45 minutes of production time. That's worth about $35,000.
Oh.
And Frank Mancuso goes, no, I lost $400 in that pot." So he was, this was his money. He definitely lost production money.
Wow.
But he valued the winning, I think, was more important to him than that. So that was one of the fun things, too. It was just, daily gambling on the
That's pretty funny, actually. The last question I got for you is Friday the 13th Part 3 was only the second sequel of the film, and the third one of the franchise. However, it wasn't a franchise at the time, basically just a trilogy. All these years later, Friday the 13th is a successful franchise with a huge fan base worldwide. What are your thoughts about being part of something so huge?
You're kind of right. Nobody at the time anticipated. I mean, we knew that Friday the 13th, the first one, was pretty successful, and everybody thought, "Oh my God, that's a big film." But even during ours, we didn't know that it was going to. There were going to be so many other sequels, and so again, we were all pretty surprised. And the fact that years later that we would even be doing conventions, that there'd be an interest in
Right.
having us come out there. That was totally a big surprise. So, I guess I would say, and this may surprise you, but horror films are not my most desired genre that I watch as a viewer of films. And so, having this being the largest part I've ever had in a genre that doesn't really call to me, is a bit weird. But still, the fact is that I was lucky enough to be in a film that was really big. So that was kind of great.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's definitely my favorite franchise. The first franchise I've ever watched. I believe the first one I actually saw was Part 7, The New Blood, which they technically call Jason versus Carrie. That's the one I originally saw first, and it got me into the franchise. And then from there, I watched all of them from the beginning, 1, 2, and 3, and everything. And then 3 just became one of my top favorites. It's in the top 3. Definitely, it might even be in the top 2 at this point. But I love Part 3. It's just, and your character was the best. I mean, I loved Chuck and I loved Chili. I loved them together. I thought they were like you said, Cheech and Chong. They were the comedy duo. I thought like they had some comedy scenes in there. It was pretty cool. I loved just the movie, just the franchise itself. It's historical. Like it's words can't even describe how big it is.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. getting the numbers wrong a little bit. But what happened was Frank Mancuso Sr., the producer's dad, was the president of Paramount Studios, and he gave Frank Mancuso Jr. $250,000 way back before the first one to seek his fortune in life. And so what he did is he used that money to make the Friday the 13th.
Wow.
And that film, as I understand it, grossed $50 million, immediately.
Right.
And so then he made part two, and that grossed, I think, $45 million.
Right.
Our film grossed $85 million. So what Frank Mancuso does, I don't know if he's still producing, but what he did do anyway, is he would use the money from the Friday the 13th movies to make, he made some serious films too,
right.
quality serious films. And he always went back to the horror film well because it paid off so well.
Right.
Which I admire, nothing wrong with that.
Definitely. I'm actually going to throw in one last question, actually, a bonus question now, because I just thought about it. How was it like working with the 3D camera?
Oh, well, so that was very interesting, and it actually provided me more days of work because scenes would sometimes not work, and it would take longer. You'd have to shoot the next day, so
right.
I'd be called to the set and never work at all because the character of Shelley and I can't think of his name.
Andy? Jeffrey Rogers?
Yeah, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
They would be juggling, and they thought that they had it right, but when you go back into watching the dailies, no, not it's blurry or whatever.
Right.
So it was a bit challenging, and 3D had not been done for years, maybe 20 years prior to our film.
Right.
And so this 3D technique was different than any that had been done before. Now I'm sure it improved even more, but
right.
but that process was tricky because it might have been in focus on one side of the camera lens, but not on the other.
Right.
And so on a purely selfish reason, it was great because I got more days' work.
That's great. But thank you for making time for the interview tonight.
Oh, hey, my pleasure. My pleasure. I like staying in touch with everybody that has an interest in these films. I still do acting. A couple of years ago, I did a guest starring spot on the show Grimm.
Nice.
And I just posted on social media today, although it's not real recent, but about 6-7 months ago, I got cast in a mixed media project from the guy who had invented the game Magic the Gathering.
Right.
He owned a company called Wizards of the Coast.
Okay.
And so it's now his lifelong dream to do a mixed media project called The World of Chaldea, spelled Chalvea. And it's kind of a cross between Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, and maybe even Avatar.
Nice.
But it kind of takes place in a world where there are elves and dwarves and dragons.
That's something that I would be interested in. So is that do you know when that'll be coming out?
Well, so part of the reason I wrote to the director is I've used both as just voiceover and in live action, but I did the voiceover for a scene, I guess, maybe 9 months ago, and I hadn't heard from him. So I said, does this die, or what's going on? What he shared is because it takes comic book drawings, take a long time to create, and so the first season, and he has plotted out 6 seasons for this thing, but the first season won't even be released for 2 more years.
Oh my God!
This guy is Peter Atkins, and he is the owner of a con called Gen Con, which is in the Midwest, kind of like a Comic-Con, only.
Right.
And so he's definitely promoting it. But anyway, my character is a 300-year-old warrior dwarf, general of the Hex. And so I'm a very savvy guy. In this world, dwarves actually actually sometimes succeed in gaining power just because they live longer than any other creature in this world. So my character, a dwarf, normally is not a powerful person, but my character has become a general of not just other dwarves, but general of humans and different, other animals,
Awesome.
orcs and things like that. So
that sounds great.
So I look forward to eventually getting this released, but on Facebook, on my Facebook page, I pasted they have drawing for me now, so you can see what my character will look like.
Definitely, I'll definitely look at that after I get off here.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I'm very honored to have had to interview you for my book.
Well, you're a great. I heard that you were a great guy. You absolutely are, and I wish you great success on your book. It's not easy to compile this information in a savvy, readable way. So
I definitely will. I've had quite a few interviews with quite a few of the Friday the 13th alumni so far, and every interview was pretty good. Even some of the interviews that didn't come out the greatest with some people. Not many of them were that great. Just a couple of them weren't that great, but I mean, I still made them into readable interviews. I mean, I was able to use their words that they gave me and enhance it a little bit. That's what I do as a writer.
Yeah, no, it's the creative form. The writer is always the king.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much. You have a nice night.
Okay, you take care, Scotty.
Yep. Thank you. You too. Bye.